Billy and Vanessa, Damascus is where we're going to start today.
Yeah, 2 days ago, a really shocking attack on central Damascus. We can play the video. It's only about 30 seconds while I'm talking. Bear in mind that this area, so Israel basically targeted the consulate section of the Iranian embassy compound. You can see the Iranian embassy there in that particular shot. But so not only was an attack effectively on Iranian territory inside Syria, it violates the Vienna Convention against attacks on diplomatic and embassy centers in sovereign territory. But this area, just moving on as well, this area, for people to understand, is a bit like Oxford Circus in London. Mezzeh Highway is the main highway, really, through the center of Damascus. This was at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was 2 hours before Iftar, the breaking of the fast during Ramadan. So the place was packed with people doing last-minute shopping before they went home to prepare food. And personally, I have a friend of mine whose two sisters were crossing the road during the explosion. One is still in critical care, as far as I understand, in hospital. So a number of civilians were killed in the attack. Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, who is probably the highest level IRGC Quds Forces commander killed since the assassination under the Trump administration of Qasem Soleimani back in 2021. But there were also in total 7 IRGC military personnel assassinated in the attack. And the actual building that was completely destroyed is the residency. It doubles up as the residency for the ambassador. The general apparently was serving as a government official at the time of his assassination. So effectively, this renders it a terrorist act by Israel. We then move on to the response from the world community. The non-aligned axis has condemned the attack as a terrorist attack generally. The US scrambles to contain fallout from Israel's strike on Iranians and the aid workers. The aid workers will come on to later. But what they actually say inside the Time article is quite interesting. There's one expert, so he basically says, in the same way that we hold Iran accountable for the actions of its proxies, aka allies, providing arms and financial support to its allies in the region, they, Iran, hold the US responsible for Israeli actions because the US arms and finances the Israeli military. So quite an interesting admission in this article. Iran summoned the Swiss ambassador for a midnight meeting on Tuesday, asking them to pass on a message to Washington that the US must answer. Again, this comes on the heels, of course, of the Crocus concert terrorist attack in Moscow, where Russia is also effectively holding the US responsible. The US response has been ambivalent, to say the least. John Kirby, national security spokesman, dismissed as nonsense the Iranian charges of US responsibility for Monday's bombing. And he warned that Washington would respond to any retaliatory attacks. Of course, if it is deemed a terrorist attack, which by all accounts it is, then Iran has the right to respond. Instead, of course, what is the US doing in the pipeline for Israel? 50 new F-15 jets, which amount to about 18 billion of supply in themselves, medium-range air-to-air missiles, joint direct and attack munition kits, which are to convert dumb bombs, so-called dumb bombs, into precision missiles, as I said, in the pipeline for Israel that is also still conducting its genocidal campaign in Palestine. Russia called an emergency meeting at the UN Security Council after the attack, during which Nebensia basically said, have we got that slide, Mike?
No, we've got the White House video clip first, if you want.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's my fault. So basically, very quickly, we have Matthew Miller as the United States spokesperson, mentioning the fact that, of course, Israel is only defending itself as usual, and that's why they're supplying all of these weapons. So let's just roll that one quickly.
A 2,000-pound bomb is self-defensive.
They need to have the ability to defend themselves against a very well-armed adversary. Like I said, Iran.
Again, the framing that this is all self-defense by Israel or preemptive self-defense by Israel attacking an Iranian embassy on Syrian territory, which of course comes in the midst of multiple other attacks by Israel, which I'll come on to in a minute. So at the UN Security Council, Russia's UN envoy told the Security Council briefing, we consider any attacks on diplomatic and consular premises, the inviolability of which is guaranteed by the relevant Vienna Conventions of 1961 and 1963 to be categorically unacceptable. This is not the first attack carried out by Israel in densely populated areas of Damascus, which generated high risk of mass casualties of civilians. Such aggressive actions by Israel are designed to further fuel the conflict. They're absolutely unacceptable and must stop. We urge West Jerusalem to abandon the practice of provocative acts against Syria and other areas. China also roundly condemned the attack. President Raisi in Tehran, the Zionists must know that they will never achieve their sinister goals with such inhumane actions. And day after day, we will witness the strengthening of the front of resistance, disgust and hatred of the people towards the illegal nature of Israel. General consensus is that Iran is not going to hastily respond, but that it will respond in kind. That could, in my opinion, mean attacks, particularly on the Golan-occupied territories, and potentially against an Israeli embassy somewhere in the world. Now, I mentioned that it came in conjunction with other Israeli attacks, and in fact, 2 days before this attack on the Iranian embassy, Israel actually violated Syrian airspace. It entered through Jordan over the illegal American military base at Al Tanif on the border with Jordan, entered at low altitude the Syrian Badia, the central desert area, to avoid radar detection, and fired missiles at eastern and west Aleppo in the north of Syria, at the same time as al-Qaeda terrorists began a concerted attack on western Aleppo with drones and terrorist forces that was finally repelled. But this was a clear collaboration between Israel and al-Qaeda, and that is definitely what we're seeing at the moment. Every time there is an Israeli attack, we're seeing an escalation in terrorist activity on all the fronts.
Vanessa, there's been at least there have been words said. David Cameron said some words, Biden, I think, and others said some words about this. But it strikes me that those, even if we were in the slightest way inclined to believe anything that comes out of their mouths at any time, but it strikes me that it's quite a coincidence that Israel is attacking Iran in this way when we've known for, 20 years now that Iran is on the target list of regime change nations.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are claims in Israeli media that Zahedi was involved in the development of nuclear arms or nuclear capability in Iran, which, as far as I'm aware, I've read through many of his autobiographies. I haven't seen any evidence of that fact. But yes, I mean, what they're trying to do effectively is to expand the war beyond Gaza and West Bank. They've been speaking about invading Lebanon. But it also comes on the heels of the revelations about the atrocities that were committed after the IOF basically evacuated the siege of Al-Shifa hospital. So it could be a number of reasons that they carried out this attack at this time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, let's come back